I believe that there is an opportunity here, an opportunity that can turn into a danger to both Israeli and Palestinians. And the only way to continue and to create a better future for both is by stop thinking in terms of supporting the Palestinians or Israel. There's a win-win situation or win-win way of thinking. And therefore, those of you just speaking, not just, speaking about the situation in Gaza without taking care of Israel's security, this will lead to a situation, to a danger, to the Palestinians in Gaza as well for Israelis. The only way to move forward is also by having a joint understanding and action plan of the moderates or the pragmatics in the region against the extremists. And it's clear, especially after October 7th, that Hamas cannot stay in power, that it should be demilitarized, and Gaza should be demilitarized, by the way, as was agreed also in the past when we negotiated peace with the Palestinians. There is no hope for peace with them. They do not represent any national cause of the Palestinians because they represent this religious jihadist ideology. And we should learn from past experience. Israel quit Gaza Strip in 2005. Israel dismantled all the settlements in Gaza. Israel hoped that the Palestinian Authority will take over, but Hamas took over. And the Palestinian Authority didn't have enough power to replace Hamas. And I believe that part of the responsibility of the pragmatics is to strengthen the Palestinian Authority against Hamas. And therefore, we cannot afford another situation where Hamas is taking over or reaching an agreement that they will be part of a future government in Gaza. Because when they took over in 2006, the entire international community agreed that if a Palestinian government wants to be legitimate, they need to accept the Oslo Agreement and to renounce violence and terrorism. And this is more than true, especially after October 7th today. So yes, it's not just about Gaza. And I do not represent here the Israeli government, but I do represent here the Israelis who want to live in peace with the Palestinians, that are not thinking about expansion of settlements or building new settlements in Gaza. But I'm also the one that negotiated peace in the future, and unfortunately Abu Mazen was not willing or didn't have the courage to say yes to a plan. I'm not entering into a blame game, trust me. This is not the reason that I'm mentioning this. But we need to learn from past experience. And the price that all of us paid during all these years is too high not to learn from past experience.
I think that there will be a response to that from the panel, and I would like to integrate it also with the first question from the audience. So I would encourage people to raise their hands so I can get a sense of who might have questions in the room, and we'll begin right here.
Thank you very much for an interesting panel. My name is Kat Piri, a member of parliament in the Netherlands. I have a question. No one mentioned the word accountability or justice. So I wonder, when will there be justice for the crimes that have been committed? I think all the perpetrators of 7th of October mostly are killed. What about the perpetrators of the genocide? Thank you.
Mr. Mladenov, would you like to take that one?
Look, my focus now really is entirely centered on how we can make sure that the tragedy that Gaza is does not continue a day longer than it has until now. And I'm sorry to say, but Munich is very far from the reality of what people are living with in Gaza right now. And that's why I want to get back to what I said in the beginning. Our focus needs to be on making sure that the people of Gaza receive the aid that they require right now, that we put in transparent, accountable indeed, institutions of governance in Gaza that they have not had for 20 years. And that we make sure that there are no weapons beyond the control of the transitional authority in Gaza. Because if we continue this, if anyone in this panel or in this room believes that we can move forward or anyone gains...
When does the accountability part, though, come in? I think that was the question. When does it come in?
By Hamas staying in control of Gaza, please let me know.
Yeah.
Please let me know. That is my focus now. All the questions related to the political process, to what happened on October 7th, to what led to October 7th, to what happened after October 7th, right now are not in my remit. And that is why I want to stay within what I need to focus on, because we're dealing with human lives right now. We're really dealing with human lives, and we need to understand this. And again, if anyone in this panel or in this room believes that there is a future for Israelis and Palestinians, with Hamas and government in Gaza, with their weapons under their control, please let me know.
There was a question right here in the front, and then, we'll ask two questions.
Thank you very much. I'm the Assistant Secretary General of the Arab League. I'm very encouraged by the panel and what was said about the way forward in Gaza, but I think most of us would agree that Gaza in itself is not the issue. The issue is the political horizon for the whole Palestinian question. I heard, for instance, what Minister Livni said, and I know this is shared in wide circles in Israel, but they also have to ask themselves why we reached this stage. The ruling coalition in Israel right now has succeeded effectively in taking us back to prior Madrid, before 91. That is very significant. So we need to, you need me to ask a question, right? I didn't have a question, I had a comment, and I think it is warranted. So my question, my comment really is, at the end, I would say, let us focus, led by the United States, because I still believe, I'm among many who still believe that it is the United States power that would be needed in order to bring things forward.
Mr. Barghouti.
Yeah, thank you. I want to agree with Senator Murphy that about the urgency of the moment. I feel sometimes we are living in a bubble of illusion. While we are talking, the Israeli government has declared that the whole West Bank is available for settlements, and they practically nailed the last nail in the coffin of Oslo Agreement in front of the whole world. And it is the Prime Minister of Israel who declared that Israel will be from the river to the sea, including Gaza. And it is the Israeli finance minister who declared that they will come back to Gaza and resettle there, and Palestinians should be ethnically cleansed. In this situation, it's not just about the accountability for genocide, which is a very good question. Also, who's going to pressure Israel to stop the process of killing the very last option of two-state solution?
Is there someone to whom you'd like to direct that question? Perhaps Chris Murphy?
Well, listen, I mean, our own intelligence agencies tell us that the net results of Israel's military activity in Gaza has been essentially meaningless with respect to the eradication of Hamas fighters. Essentially, just as many have joined as have been killed. And it is a reminder that we can have this conversation every decade about the reconstruction of Gaza after a major military activity from Israel, or we can make a decision to prioritize a future in which the Palestinians have a home of their own. And so this has to be a centerpiece of American policy. I will agree that we need to lead. This administration has not led, but we cannot give up. But I think the administration needs to understand that time is of the essence.
I'm going to turn around because I haven't been able to see behind me if there were any questions or any hands. And if not, I did see a question right here. Yeah. And please do ask a question if you would.
It is a question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm the director of the Carnegie Middle East Center in Beirut. Nikolai, for you, it's called the Board of Peace. So while I applaud the focus on, the immediate humanitarian, addressing the disastrous conditions, I think maybe this needs to be part of a larger political horizon.
Yes.
At least taking that into account. It's not enough to say the here and now, and the urgency of the moment, I think Mustafa and many of the speakers have already referred to. So my question to all of you is, what can be done? What are you willing to do? What leverage are you willing to use to start building the blocks for something really that is called peace?
I think I'd have to give that to you again.
I fully agree. I fully agree with you. What I'm saying is that there are two ways of looking at it. Can we fix the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and end up with a two-state solution if we're looking at the politics at the top without looking at what's happening on the ground? Or do we need to fix the situation on the ground in order to enable the conclusion of what needs to happen at the top? And then right now, we have such a disastrous situation in Gaza, such a disastrous situation, that if we allow collectively it to be cemented under the current conditions, in which it is not just Gaza being divided from the West Bank, it is Gaza itself being divided into two parts. If we cement that division, please tell me how we get from that to a two-state solution, because I can't see the pathway. And that is why we need to make sure that, one, Gaza is, we often talk about having one governance, one legal system, and one system of controlling weapons in Gaza. And I always add to that, we need one Gaza for that. And that is why we need to start with, making sure that Hamas is out of the governance, that there's a transitional civilian authority in place in order to be able to normalize the situation on the ground, in order to have what is really required, as you said, a political solution to the conflict. But under the current conditions, with Hamas still in Gaza and Gaza divided into two, we're setting ourselves up for complete and utter failure if we don't address that. And that failure will be, the price of that failure will be paid both by Palestinians and Israelis down the line.
And with those words, we conclude our panel, Life Under Destruction, Building Blocks for a New Gaza. Thank you so much to all of you, and thank you so much to the audience.
This is DW News live from Berlin. Ukraine's president prepares to speak to the Munich Security Conference. Volodymyr Zelenskyy is expected to urge more support for his country's defense against Russia as he comes under renewed pressure from Washington to accept Russian demands to end the war. Right. Hi, I'm Eddie Micah Jr. This is DW's special coverage of the gathering of leaders at the Munich Security Conference. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is just about to address the Munich Security Conference, and so we'll be getting to that right about now. Meanwhile, I have with me in the studio DW correspondent Matthew Moore, who will be helping us discuss this. What to expect? Let's get to President Volodymyr Zelenskyy of Ukraine as he's about to deliver his address.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Dear friends, thank you for your attention to Ukrainian people, and for supporting our independence and our Ukrainians. And I want to especially thank those who stand with us, not only in words or not only in emotions, not only in the hope for more security, but in real action, in real work, in concrete help, like Germany, like Mark, like Ursula, Antonio, Roberta, and all our friends from the United States and all our European friends. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you. And if you are a European leader and you meet Mark Rutte, you will definitely hear the word pearl. And not just once. And very serious things, really. He starts and ends every conversation with a call to support pearl. And he's right to do so. Thank you, Mark. Pearl is a program that allows us to buy Patriot missiles in the United States and other weapons that protect Ukrainians from Russian attacks, of course. Most of the air defense missiles that can stop Russian ballistic missiles come to us thanks to Pearl. And Pearl exists because of Europe, it's true. Europe is paying for our ability to stop ballistic attacks. Thanks everyone who helps us. Thank you. And honestly, one of the worst things a leader can hear in wartime is a report from the Air Force commander saying the air defense units are empty. Empty, and they used the air missiles to stop Russian strikes, and there was no resupply, and intelligence says a new massive attack may come in a day or two. Sometimes we manage to deliver new missiles for our Patriots or NASAMS just before an attack, and sometimes at the very last moment. And I want to especially thank Germany, Norway, Netherlands for their strong leadership in Europe in giving us air defense systems. Thank you very much. These systems save our lives. And thanks to every European leader who invests in Pearl and in other joint defense programs. And I'm proud of our soldiers who repel Russian attacks and of our logistic teams who have kept this system working for 4 years. And I'm proud of our nation. And it is the courage and resilience of Ukrainians that make the defense, that make the difference. And our people deserve gratitude, they deserve respect. Thank you so much. 4 years of full-scale war. Today I want to show you what that really means. And I want you to ask yourselves, are you ready not only for the challenges that Russian aggression brings, the challenges of modern war, but also for the constant effort to convince the world to fight for support, to defend your country's interests every single day, as Ukraine must do. The world is built on interests, and you have to work tirelessly to align interests and help partners see what this brings. And when you see what is coming, we will be able to convince those in power to act preventively, to stop the evil before it destroys everything. Right now you can see a visualization of one of Russia's attacks. Many of you were already here in Munich when this strike took place. Russia launched 24 ballistic missiles, 1 air-launched guided missile, and 200, can you imagine, 219 attack drones against our cities, Kyiv, Dnipro, Odessa. Just one attack, just one night. Our air defense used the missile that arrived from our partners just a few days earlier. They came on Sunday, it's true, and on Thursday night, the missiles were already protecting our skies. And that is just one night, but Russian attacks happen almost every night in Ukraine, and at least once a week massive strikes. Still, Ukraine has endured 1,451 days of full-scale war, longer than anyone predicted. And I want you to understand the real scale of these attacks on Ukraine. As you can see, in just 1 month, this January, we had, you see it, we had to defend against 6,000 attack drones. Most of them were Shahid drones, and 150 plus Russian missiles of different types, and more than 5,000 glide bombs. And it's like these every month. Imagine this over your own city, shattered streets, destroyed homes, schools built underground, and this is daily life in Ukraine because of course, because of Russia, for 4 long years. Russia uses many ballistic missiles and carries out combined attacks. Most of the strikes target our power plants and other critical infrastructure, and there is not a single power plant left in Ukraine that has not been damaged by Russian attacks, not one. But we still generate electricity, thanks to our people. And we have kept our system running thanks to physical protection of the facilities and thanks to everyone who helps us with air defense. Just as important, Ukraine still has power because of our people, thousands of workers who serve millions. And when I see our energy workers, our repair crews, rescue teams, I see something that is often missing in politics. Through dedication, the ability to work at 100%, to act immediately in a real emergency, not in a month, not in a year or 2, but they save lives here. They save lives now, all these years. And many politicians could learn and must, I think, must learn from ordinary rescuers, from ordinary repair crews, from ordinary electricians to act, how to act immediately. During this war, thank you. During this war, weapons evolve faster than political decisions meant to stop them. When the Iranian regime first gave Russia the Shahid drones, they were simple weapons. They could be shut down easily. Now the Shahid is different. It has a jet engine. It can fly at different altitudes. It can be guided by an operator in real time. And it can use Starlink to reach its target. It can even carry other drones, acting at the, how we say, mother drone for FPVs. War reveals forms of evil we did not expect, and the longer a war continues, the more resources the aggressor receives. The more dangerous the consequences becomes, the more dangerous the evolution of weapons and of war itself, and the evolution of Putin. And I remember how the full-scale war was seen in the first year. And we were told that support would continue, but not at the scale and speed needed for Ukraine to win, it's true, or for Russia to lose. And what did that mean? It meant time. The idea was that America could manage the pace of the war and the risk of escalation to reach a point where Russia would no longer be able to attack, and Ukraine would agree not to return its occupied territories. Bob Woodward wrote about this approach of the previous US administration in his book, War. And he described how US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, "We own the clock." And Austin had told Jake Sullivan numerous times, we own the clock. And Woodward writes that Sullivan was constantly learning from him. And of course, we are grateful for all the supplies we received. But you saw how it was, how long we had to push, to be allowed to get stronger and stronger weapons. Months for HIMARS, months for tanks, years for aircraft. Everything took time. This did not make the situation easier for anyone, because in war, the war itself owns time. And it uses the time against people, of course. That is why not a single day, not a single opportunity to protect life can be wasted. Everyone who seeks security and peace must understand this. Every day matters. And I'm grateful to every American heart that was helping us no matter what. Thank you. Without you, Americans, Europeans, and everyone who stands with us, it would have been very, very difficult to hold on. Thank you very much. Right now, on the streets of Munich and other cities, people are calling for support for freedom in Iran. We saw it. And Ukraine does not share a border with Iran. And we have never had a conflict of interests with the Iranian regime. But the Iranian Shahed drones they sold to Russia are killing especially our people, Ukrainians, and destroying our infrastructure. The Iranian regime has already done and can still do more harm than many other regimes could do in this century. And yet this regime still exists, and it hopes to survive everything, even this crisis. Today, the people of Iran expect from the world what we in Ukraine needed on February 24th, when the Russian invasion began: unity, determination, and speed. Of course, speed. Speed in support. And regimes like the one in Iran must not be given time. When they have time, they only kill more. They must be stopped immediately. And this is exactly what should have happened with the Ayatollah after all the wars his regime unleashed and all the lives it took. And with Putin as well, after the war in Georgia, after Syria, after 2014 and the occupation of Crimea. But even in these conditions, when we cannot know how long this war will last, we do everything to keep life going. And today, Ukraine has more experience than anyone in the world in defending against all types of drones. Every night we face fewer than 100 Shahed drones. Some nights there are 400 or even 500 attack drones. And Ukrainians shut down almost 90. Can you imagine? 90% of them. But still not 100. And we are doing everything to increase that rate. Among other tools, we use different types of interceptors. And what you see now are real videos of those interceptors, by the way. Together with our partners, we are producing more and more of them each day. And we will reach the point where we produce enough to make Shahed drones meaningless for Russia. But the key words here are together with partners. And there is no country in Europe that could rely only on its own technology and money to defend itself. In a full-scale war, no one would stand alone. That is why, while we invest in interceptors and protection, Russia invests in breaking unity between all of us. Our unity with you, unity in Europe, unity in the Euro-Atlantic community. They want to break it. Why? Because our unity is the best interceptor against Russia's aggressive plans. The best one, and we still have it. And I want to thank you, each of you who keeps unity alive and makes it stronger. Our unity is what protects us. Hundreds of production sites are already operating in Ukraine and in partner countries, and we have the Danish model. Thanks, Meta, your team, your people, investing in weapons production in Ukraine. We have joint drone production here in Germany, and it officially started yesterday, thanks to everybody and to Friedrich. And we have the joint artillery initiative with Czechia. I see Peter, hi. Thank you so much. And we are doing a lot together with the Nordic countries, with the UK and France, Netherlands, Italy and Poland and United States, Canada and Turkey. There are important changes in Japan thanks to Prime Minister, government, and we all value that Japan stands with us in the coalition of the willings. And there are strong decisions from Europe, including 90 billion euros for 2 years for us. Thank you so much. And this is a serious guarantee of Ukraine's financial stability. And thank you for every strong decision for all our joint work. But let's not close our eyes to the problem. And Russia still has accomplices, regimes like North Korea and companies across the globe, many of them from China, that bypass sanctions and provide components for Russian weapons, Russian missiles. On top of that, Putin still has guarantees of financial stability. A large part of those guarantees lies here in Europe, in European seas. I mean, Russian oil tankers still move freely along Europe's shores, in the Baltic Sea, in the North Sea, and in the Mediterranean. In total, Russia still uses more than 1,000 tankers. Each of them is, in fact, a floating wallet for the Kremlin. And I recently discussed this with President Macron, with President von der Leyen, and with other leaders, and thanked them for their willingness to fix this. We spoke about updating European legislation so that Russian tankers cannot only be detained, but blocked. This is important, to block all these tankers, and they are all confiscated, the way the United States acts against shadow-fleet tankers near its own shores. And it works, really. Without all money, Putin would not have money for this war. Let's make it possible. And now I want to speak about the cost of war on the ground. What does 1 month of war mean for Putin? Just in December, our forces eliminated 35,000 occupying soldiers, killed and badly wounded. In January, there were fewer Russian assaults, and as a result, Russia's losses were about 30,000 killed and badly wounded. There is even a clear price Russia pays for every kilometer of occupied Ukrainian land. On the Donetsk front, it's one of the most intense areas, and everybody knows about it. The price Russia pays for 1 kilometer now is 156 soldiers. Putin is not concerned about this now, but there is a level at which he will start to care, I'm sure. Every month, Russia mobilizes about 40,000 people, a little bit more, 42, 43, sometimes. Not all of them reach the front line. So overall, the size of the Russian contingent in Ukraine is not growing this year. For our army, the mission is clear: to destroy more Russian occupiers, because they are occupiers. And the goal is specific, at least 50,000 per month. Even for Russia, that would be serious, I'm sure. And it would affect Putin's decisions, because we are speaking mainly about frontline troops, those leading the assaults and attacks. Mr. Ischinger said in an interview before this conference that as long as Ukraine is defending Europe, the danger is not so great. And if we speak plainly and maybe a bit cynically, that is more or less the situation today. But look at the price. Look at the price. Look at the pain Ukraine has gone through. Look at the suffering Ukraine has faced. it's Ukrainians who are holding the European front. Behind our people stand an independent Poland and the free Baltic states. There can be a sovereign Moldova and a Romania without dictatorship, and even one victor can think about how to grow his belly, not how to grow his army to stop Russian tanks from returning to the streets of Budapest. But none of our people choose to be such heroes. Ukraine did not choose this war. And it's wrong to assume that this is a permanent arrangement that others can stay safe behind Ukraine backs forever. Ukrainians are people, not terminators. Our people are dying too. That is why we are doing everything to stop this war and to guarantee security. But the problem is this: Putin is no longer interested in anything else. Putin does not live like ordinary people. He doesn't walk the streets. You will not see him in a cafe. His grandchildren do not go to the normal kindergartens in their hometown. He cannot imagine life without power or after power. Normal things do not interest him. Putin consults more with Tsar Peter and Empress Catherine about territorial gains than with any living person about real life. Can you imagine Putin without war? Be honest. Right now, his focus is on Ukraine, and no one in Ukraine believes he will ever let our people go. But he will not let other European nations go either, because he cannot let go of the very idea of war. He may see himself as a Tsar, but in reality, he is a slave to war. And if he lives another 10 years, we can understand it can be. War can return or expand. That is why we say there must be real security guarantees for Ukraine and for Europe, strong security guarantees. And we know clearly what those guarantees must include. And we have strong agreements ready to sign with the United States and with Europe. We think that the agreement on security guarantees should come before any agreement to end the war. Those guarantees answer the main question: how long there will be no war again? And we hope President Trump hears us. We hope the Congress hears us. We hope American people hear us. And we are grateful for all the real help. Thank you. We are doing everything, truly everything, to end this war, and this war can end and security can be guaranteed. Before the invasion began, we told the world, act now, please act preventively so the invasion does not happen. And I sent our commander-in-chief, at that time it was General Zelenskyy, to speak with the American side and to explain what Ukraine needed to defend itself. And I said, tell them we need javelins, stingers, and real weapons, something real to stop the Russian army, so they see we are not standing with bare hands. It was very important, but the most practical advice General Milley could give Ukraine at that time was simply dig trenches. And that is the answer my commander-in-chief brought back. Just imagine hundreds of thousands of Russian troops on your borders, massive military equipment, and all you hear is dig trenches. So if Russian troops enter Lithuania, God bless, no, just like example, or another country on NATO NATO's eastern flank, what will the allies hear then? Will they hear that help is on the way? Hope so. Or will they hear dig trenches? Or something else? We must have the ability to give a strong response to that threat. And that is why we are talking about a joint European defense policy. That is why we need American backstop. That is why Europe needs Ukraine. The Ukrainian army is the strongest army in Europe. Thanks to our heroes. And it's simply, I think it's simply not smart to keep this army outside NATO. But at the very least, let that be your, friends, your decision, not Putin's decision, please. And today, among the things that unite Europe most strongly, there is also fear. Not fear that Ukraine might one day join NATO, but fear about whether NATO will even exist. But we support NATO and hope that NATO will be each day stronger and stronger. God bless. And right now, much of our cooperation with Europe and with other NATO partners and cooperation inside the alliance, including the historic decision to move toward 5% of GDP on defense, is a response to that fear. I think it's a correction of past mistakes, and it is an investment in the future, security, and it is a guarantee that NATO will not only exist, but will act if, God forbid, it's ever needed. Dear ladies and gentlemen, more and more often now many former officials from different countries say they warned about this war and that they said the invasion would happen. They remember what they said, and in most cases they greatly improved their own story, but none of them can say what they actually did. What they did to prevent the invasion. All these stories are about one thing, just one thing, shifting responsibility away from themselves. And what did Russia see in 2021? Putin sat as an equal with the President of the United States in Geneva. And he felt he could reshape Europe and the world at least. And there were no preventive sanctions against Russia, and there were no serious defense packages to show that we could stand up to Russia. Look now, our great guy, our athlete, Vladislav Graskevich. And he was disqualified at the Olympics simply for the intention to wear a helmet showing the faces of athletes killed by Russia in this war. And he was disqualified for the intention. When in 2021 we clearly saw Putin's intent and asked for preventive sanctions to stop the invasion, we were told, first, there must be a crime, and only then can there be punishment. And Kamala Harris, I remember, said this, but with Russia, you cannot leave a single loophole Russians can use to start a war. As they say in Russia, first get into the fight, and then we'll see what happens. That is how they do everything. That is how they start wars. And that is how they conduct negotiations, not to end the war, but to avoid ending it, and just to buy time. As people now look back at the time before the Russian invasion, what will be said about this moment 4 years from now? And will some of today's powerful leaders look for ways to avoid responsibility and to justify themselves? There were different options before the invasion. There are options now. I think so. And when we say that Russia must not be rewarded for this war, we are saying the same thing we said before the invasion. Russia must not be given hope that it can get away with this crime. Everyone must respond already at the stage of intent, the intent to kill, the temptation to continue aggression. Please remember the moment when Russia began to take diplomacy most seriously during these 4 years. It was when our deep strikes against Russian oil refineries began to work and when everyone started talking about tomahawks. That shows exactly how to deal with Russia and what Russia actually hears. It hears strength. The stronger we are, the more realistic peace becomes. A lot of time now is spent on negotiations. We truly hope that the trilateral meetings next week will be serious, substantive, helpful for all of us. But honestly, sometimes it feels like the sides are talking about completely different things. The Russians often speak about some spirit of anchorage. And we can only guess what they really mean. The Americans often return to the topic of concessions. And too often those concessions are discussed in the context only of Ukraine, not Russia. Europe is practically not present at the table. It's a big mistake to my mind. And it is, I think we Ukrainians who are trying to bring Europe fully into the process so that Europe's interests and voice are taken into account. This is very important. And Ukraine keeps returning to one simple point. Peace can only be built on clear security guarantees. Where there is no clear security system, war always returns. Ukraine will do everything, truly everything, to make these negotiations successful. We have invested in this process and we are in constant contact with Steve Witkoff, with Jared Kushner and with everyone President Trump appoints. Today we are meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Ukraine wants the result of all these efforts to be real security and real peace. Not what came out of Geneva in 2021, not what the Russians hope for from this so-called spirit of anchorage. And it seems Putin hopes to repeat Munich, and not Munich 2007, when they only spoke about dividing Europe, but Munich 1938, when previous Putin began dividing Europe in reality. It would be an illusion to believe that this war can now be reliably ended by dividing Ukraine, just as it was an illusion to believe that sacrificing Czechoslovakia would save Europe from a great war. And when people ask today what the price of a deal could be, our answer is simple. The main thing is that in 4 years, the civilized world is not forced to justify itself again, to shift the responsibility, and not forced again to look for someone else to blame. Dear friends, Ukraine is ready for a deal that brings real peace to us, to Ukraine, to Europe. And I'm confident that this war can be ended, and ended with dignity. This is the most important for us, with dignity. And we have given our partners everything we believe such a deal must include. And we are ready to invest in common security, everything we have learned while defending ourselves during these years of this war. And we can clearly answer most of the security questions that were raised at the conference yesterday and that will be raised today. And right now, as we work together to protect lives in Ukraine, we are building a new system, a new security, a new response architecture, new approaches to protect lives in any European country when needed. Our wall of drones is your wall of drones. Our expertise in drones is a part of your security. Our ability to stop assaults and Russian sabotage can also be part of your defense. Europe needs a real common defense policy, just as it already has so much in common in the economy, in law, and in social policy. Please pay attention to Ukraine. And if exactly that had happened earlier, this war would not have begun. Thank you. Slava Ukraini! Thank you. Thank you. Дякую.
So, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, just finished his address at the Munich Security Conference, and as you can hear loud and clear, a round of applause to all that he said. And as you also seen on your screens, yeah, we're going to get into a panel discussion with him and others, and we'll keep monitoring that. In the studio, I still have my colleague Matthew Moore, and we'll get back in the studio for more discussions after this
conference for the last 4 years. And I just wanted to point out before we start the conversation that your Nobel laureate and human rights activist has pointed out that in the year of the Trump administration so-called peace negotiations, more people have been killed and injured on both sides than in any other previous year, and certainly more civilians, particularly, obviously, in Ukraine. So I guess I want to ask you, Mr. President, and of course you will be speaking in your brilliant English, right, as ever? Yes, 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 English, as always. Can I just ask you, what do you need right now? I'm really conscious of the time and owning time issue that you've talked about, but if you were to put out a wish list or a shopping list right now, is it mostly anti-aircraft and missiles to protect your skies? What do you need right now?
Thank you so much. I will use my brilliant
You
English.
will. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, thank you very much for this conversation. Let's look at priorities. All our challenges are, first, energy challenge. We need missiles for Patriot systems, first of all for Patriots. Also, we spoke yesterday with our Norway partners, Americans, and also with Germany, so we need also missiles for NASAMS and for IRIS-T systems. This is crucial. This is number one, what we need, missiles, and as quick as possible. I'm very thankful for possibility, Mark, for you, and thanks you, and on not only Pearl, we're thankful for Rammstein. I think that it was positive. I will tell you successful when missiles will come to Ukraine. Yeah, so I hope that it will be successful. And it was very difficult, and Germany helped very much. And Minister Pistorius, I don't know where is he. I think he works. Yes, and on this plan, hope so. Yeah, to bring more missiles to us. So this is about energy. We spoke yesterday with our Berlin's group, how we call it, because we had a successful meeting yesterday with all the partners, and I think the idea before 24th to strengthen Ukraine as much as possible with energy supplies will be a plan of energy support, plan of missiles. This is important. Then it's Pearl. Mark is sitting here. Now, then I see Roberta, so we need membership in EU. You said wish list,
and then membership in NATO. I understand.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Let me ask.
And we need security guarantees,
yes.
which been
voted
in
a second.
Yeah.
Secretary General, what can you only have one mic? What can President Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian people, and as he said, Europe, expect right now for the defense of that land and your land? What can they get right now?
Can I, before I answer the question, just share with you two things I saw myself last week in Kiev. I was with a small team of colleagues from NATO. First of all, you saw one of the pictures here of the impact of 5 missiles taking out one of these huge heating plants. And we do not always realize in this part of Europe that when it comes to Kiev and the big cities, they are heated centrally. So what the Russians did with 5 missiles, take out this heating plant, responsible for heating the homes of 250,000 people. That plant will be down at least for 2 months. That means that these people, and it was minus 25 degrees last week in Kiev, during night, and minus 15 degrees during day, that they are living in those conditions. When you speak with the people, they are telling me, hey, keep on supporting us. We will not give in. It only makes them almost stronger, despite the terrible difficulty they are facing. Then I was the next day in Chernihiv. And Chernihiv was occupied for 4 to 6 weeks, directly after February 22. And I spoke with people who were kept in the basement of a school, the size of the first 3 rows of this room, 150 people. There were only chairs they could sit on. 10 people died in that room. They were not able to bury them. This is the Russians. This is the lack of decency, of humanity. For 6 weeks, these people were kept there. I looked in the eyes of these 2 people who showed me around there. They told me, we are resilient. We will never give in, but tell this story to other people, what the Russians did here. And others of us have been in Bucha and other places around Kiev. This was in Chernihiv, about 2 hours drive from Kiev. And then I met Patron. And Patron is a doc. And the doc is responsible, and he is a sort of hero of Ukraine now, because he sniffs when people are taking rubble away and there is a risk of new explosions coming up. And he is excellent at this. And I agree with you. The untold story of this war is the heroes from the firefighters, from the ambulance services, from all these people. Of course, the soldiers. They're amazing. But sometimes we forget about the police and the firefighters and all the other civilian people who are helping to take out this rubble, etc. And this dog, I even looked the dog in the eye and he told me, we will never give in.
What did you tell the dog that you were going to give Ukraine now?
And here is the story. For Ukraine to stay strong in this fight, one, we have to realize the Russians are not winning this. As you said, they lost 65,000 people in December and in January. They are not winning this. They make very small gains in Donetsk and other places, so small that it's almost not relevant. But they lose all these people. If there is a dictator in Moscow willing to do that, we are really working with somebody who is willing to do that, to get so many of his own people killed in that war. We have to take that seriously. Because this is crazy behavior at every level. So what we need to do here in this room, in all our positions, the politicians and everybody who can influence this, is to make sure that these people who are staunch, who are defending themselves, who will never give up, that they have the offensive stuff they need, so that is all the missiles, etc., to hit whatever they need to hit in Russia, and of course the ammunition, but particularly also to take out the missiles coming into Ukraine. Because this is not hitting the front line. This is hitting the cities, the innocent civilians, the civilian infrastructure, only to create chaos and panic so that the soldiers on the front line are thinking of their families back in Kiev, thinking, oh, maybe we should go back to Kiev because my family is now living in terrible conditions. This is the only reason to do that. And we have that. The US is still supplying massive amounts of this stuff into Ukraine. This is the Pearl program paid for by Canada and European allies. That will cost this year $15 billion, 12 billion euros. It's crucial that that money is there. And then, of course, the Europeans and the Canadians doing all the bilateral stuff. And please use what SACEUR, the Supreme Allied Commander, has drawn up together with the Ukrainians, the list of stuff they need. Don't give bilateral stuff outside that list, because it is nice. It gives you nice pictures and photographs in the newspapers. But we know exactly what they need. We have, thanks to Jens, this whole structure was set up under his Secretary Generalship, Wiesbaden, the command there, and it is working excellently. So please use that list, the comprehensive Ukraine requirement list, and then Pearl, which is all the stuff the US is supplying. We need to do this. Keep them strong in the fight. They will do it, but they need our support.
And the second part of that, the other side of that coin, is putting enough pain on Putin, as you have said and as others have said, to actually get serious about a serious negotiation.
And that's exactly what Rubio said today.
Right.
It is testing him. Is he serious, Putin, about all of this? And he is again sending this historian next week to the talks in Geneva. So he will again lecture the Ukrainians about how to rush from Sweden or whatever.
But in his speech, in his speech, he mentioned Ukraine only in passing, and the words were elusive peace. So we'll get to that in a minute. Roberta Metsola, for Europe, you saw a call to arms today from Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, from Prime Minister Starmer, really rebuilding Europe's military-industrial complex. What, though, can you do now? How come you haven't managed to get all those, the money of Russia that you could actually give to Ukraine, and most of the Europeans agree with it? Why can't you just get it done and put pressure on Putin, as President Zelenskyy says, and as it's patently clear that there is not enough pressure on Putin yet? He doesn't feel enough pain.
Well, on that we agree. Next week, I will sign a 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine, agreed in under 4 weeks, in an unprecedented speed. You might say it took us too long. We used to do things much slower before. But when push came to shove, we really put our money where our mouth is. And this is what we need to use as the strongest of message that when I first came to Ukraine, couple of weeks into the beginning of the war, Volodymyr, I told you that we would stand with you. And I preside over a parliament where the majorities are huge. And I want to say this because every second question, wherever we go, we're asked, but there's fatigue and people are looking away and you're losing your priorities on what you should do. My answer is, I was in the opening of the Winter Olympics 1 week ago, and the loudest cheer was for the Ukrainian delegation. And that is what shows spontaneously that the people of Europe are with you. What have we done since the 24th of February 2022? So we have the immense increase in GDP expenditure on defense. That's also thanks to your leadership, Mark. Secondly, we have adopted an unprecedented number of sanctions in terms of packages. We're waiting for the 20th package now. We are working and agreed with Volodymyr when he talked about the next step on what we should do on the shadow fleet. We have 2 new members in NATO, and this is particularly personal for me because one of my sons is serving in the military of one of them. And that is what would never have been done if it were not for Ukrainians fighting for the freedom that we took for granted, that we looked away, that we took too long to respond to. But I would say that today, we are there, we will be there, we need to take it to the next step. On enlargement, I can answer, I preside over a parliament massively in favor of that. This is a win-win, it's not about charity, we need Ukraine, and we need Ukraine to be part of the European family, and we can do much more, and we can do much, much, much more, and we are there for.
As President Zelenskyy pointed out, still Russian tankers are patrolling your waters with their
we have over 600
war
that
money.
have been detained, but we have to do much more.
Okay, Senator Wicker, senior senator, Republican senator. What more can the United States do? We've had a year of so-called negotiations in which every time we look around, it appears that President Trump puts more pressure on President Zelenskyy than on President Putin. There is a package of sanctions that's ready to go. I understand both houses of Congress.
That's right.
So
that's right. And that's the good news. And what we've just heard from Europe is very good news. What we need specifically is we need for the administration to unleash the Tomahawk missiles. And that's a message that will come from the Congress. It's the decision of the administration. But the very good news, in addition to the good news about messages of reassurance today, and the support that this room has shown, we will be able to vote in 2 weeks' time on sanctions. And what Ukraine really needs is for Russia to run out of oil. And if we pass meaningful, serious sanctions on the oil producers, on, say, the 8 refineries around the world that Russia depends on, that can bring a meaningful change in the negotiations. Some other good news. Public opinion in favor of Ukraine in the United States is growing. Public opinion among Republicans being polled is growing in the United States. And we're in a position with the sanctions bill, perhaps next week, for this to be a turning point.
Well, that is very interesting news for sure. President Zelenskyy, we were talking about security guarantees, all the things that you need in order to actually sign on to a peace process. I don't know what you make of President Trump's latest, in which I believe yesterday he said Zelenskyy is going to have to get moving. Russia wants to make a deal, and Zelenskyy is going to have to get moving. Otherwise, he's going to miss a great opportunity. He has to move. Are you, obviously, I mean, this is pressure. Are you feeling the pressure?
A little bit. I mean, there's, I understand signals of the president. Maybe it's preparing atmosphere before Switzerland meeting, trilateral meeting, and etc. So, not losing our dignity, we can move. We made a lot of compromises, speaking with Russians, beginning even with this. We have trilateral meetings. With all respect to the United States, they proposed us to have such meetings. I think it was a compromise from the side of Ukrainian people. The second point, we are ready to speak and continue. We are ready to speak about constant line. We are ready to speak about the stop on the contact line and then begin to talk. This is also a compromise, because we are speaking about our territories, which are temporarily occupied, our people which have been killed. So a lot of different compromises. Even when American side proposed a free economic zone, such propositions, what we said, look, it's our territory, it has to be our territory. And we can't just withdraw. There are 200,000 people, they are Ukrainians. It's our territory, we can't just run away. We didn't run away from the first day of this war. Why? We will do it today. But we are ready to speak about this free economic zone, maybe something, it can be something important for compromises to renovation of Ukraine and etc. But we are ready. They said, will you ready to do some steps? The question is what Russians are ready to do. We don't hear compromises from Russian side. We want to hear from them something, and I think this is important.
Before you carry on, can I just ask you about two press reports?
Our people under pressure, by the way, about the pressure. Our people, Ukrainians under pressure.
They're being killed. The FT reports that you are prepared to announce a plan for presidential elections and a referendum on a peace deal, that you're prepared to announce that even potentially by the end of this month. True or false?
Something new for me.
So you don't know?
It was new for me. Yes, I think I answered already on this question, but I can repeat. First of all, of course, nobody support elections during the war. It's something strange. I said it about so many times. Then I said, if American side will push this signal, I'm ready to show that we are ready for this. Okay, give us, I'm very honest, give us 2 months of ceasefire, we will go to elections. That's it. Give us ceasefire, give us security infrastructure. Maybe not 2 months, but we need a lot of days to prepare. Then give us possibility, our soldiers to vote, how they can, I mean, defend our lives, our country, and at the same moment to vote. This is something difficult. Even not, I mean, this is strange, it's something very difficult, and I don't know who has such experience. We don't have it. And we can't compare. Sometimes I heard, sometimes I heard, yes, we had elections in the United States during Lincoln's time and etc. How we can compare it? We have missiles, our people under missiles. It's not just land war. A lot of missiles, we're under ballistic attacks. So give us ceasefire. President Trump can do it. Push Putin, make ceasefire, then our parliament will change the law and we will go to elections. If they need them, if Americans need elections in Ukraine, and if Russians need elections in Ukraine, we are open for this.
Secretary General,
But we can also give ceasefire for Russians if they will do elections in Russia.
Secretary General, even the Chinese...
This is why he is...
But that's his previous and his current
strength,
right? Communication. Can I ask you, even the Chinese foreign minister, as he was talking and addressing today, did the whole Russian trope about having to talk about the historical reasons and the preconditions and this and that for a ceasefire. What do you see as the vital security guarantees that need to be in place? And so far, Russia has said no to even an international monitoring force of Europeans. So what do you see is a realistic security guarantee?
Well, let's first of all, answering to the Wang Yi, to the Chinese thing, conclude together that there was absolutely no reason whatsoever for the Russians to invade Ukraine. Not in 2014 with Crimea, not a full-scale onslaught on Ukraine starting late February 2022. So this is absolutely not true. Then, when it comes to security guarantees, the first thing which is crucial is for NATO, that NATO came back together. The last couple of days, there has been a huge shift in mindset within NATO, where the Europeans are now taking more of a leadership role in NATO, where the Europeans take more responsibility for their own defense, and this is making us stronger because it anchors the United States stronger in the NATO alliance. It answers a request from them, and for Ukraine to stay strong, it is important that the 32 NATO allies are stronger together. So I really believe NATO is stronger now than it was ever since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And we are now ready also to help Ukraine, not as an alliance, we will do that individual allies, and this brings me to the security guarantees. We need security guarantees at 3 levels. Level 1 is the Ukrainian armed forces. They have to be so strong and so well trained, and of course they are already battle hardened, that they can first of all, of course, defend themselves. Then we need, and this is the leadership of Macron and Starmer within Europe, the coalition of the willing, many other countries participating in Europe, Canada, and also, by the way, more and more the US getting involved, but I'll come to that, but the coalition of the willing, nations in NATO, but also outside NATO, working together to make sure that they will contribute whatever is necessary to make sure that Putin will never ever to try again invade Ukraine after a peace deal or a long-term ceasefire. So no repeat of Budapest 94, no repeat of Minsk 2014, 2015. And then the third element is the Americans. It was a crucial moment when the American President Trump said in August, I want to be part of that. I want to be participating. And then we articulated, the Ukrainians and the Americans and the coalition of the willing, what that will be. And this is exactly as the President said, as Volodymyr said. In January, we had a meeting in Paris, very successful, with the Americans, where I would say 95, 96, 97% of the security guarantees now done. So this is crucial, because that means that when that peace deal is there, we can make sure collectively, with the Ukrainian armed forces as the first line of defense, that the Russians will not attack again. But obviously, to do that, you need Putin to play ball. What I am seeing, what the Americans are doing consistently since February, under President Trump's leadership, Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, is they are testing the Russians to see whether they are serious.
Yeah, but this has been going on for a year.
Hey,
how much testing?
We can have as much criticism as you want on the present American government, but I'm going to defend them there. Here.
No, it's a question.
I know.
Question,
no. But in the question, I hear some.
How long?
I know. And I
how
don't mind.
How long do you test? This has been the
yes.
deadliest year for Ukraine.
But here's the
Russia.
thing. Here's the thing. If we agree that only the American president was able to break the deadlock with Putin, I think it was only him, because he is the leader of the mightiest nation on earth, a quarter of the world economy, the mightiest military on earth. He did that in February. He broke the deadlock. And no one expected this to end soon. It is an extremely difficult situation we are dealing with. And the most important issue here is not Zelenskyy or the Ukrainian team. They are willing to play ball. They want this to end as soon as possible. Nobody wants to prolong this. So it is the Russians who have to play ball. And this is exactly why the Lindsey Graham Blumenthal law now, or whatever you call it in the US, law, or
the sanctions bill.
The sanctions bill you have now in the Senate is so important. What the president did himself, putting sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil, what he did was the secondary sanctions on India and China when it comes to oil delivery, so still oil buying from Russia. This is all important. This is putting pressure on the Russians. The Europeans doing that with their sanction packages. One problem: China is the main a sanctions circumventer in the world and therefore the main contributor to Russia to the war effort. Of course, together with North Korea and Iran and Belarus, but China is playing that role. We should not be naive.
Senator Wicker, as far as I gather, and you can confirm, that Secretary of State Marco Rubio did not choose to go to the special Berlin format meeting of all the President Zelenskyy, Mark Rutte, and the other leaders. What do you think that signals? And do you think, as Secretary General Rutte says, that the United States is absolutely committed to a fair and just peace and is willing to do the work for it? When I say the United States, I mean this administration.
I take the Secretary of State's statement on face value. I don't think it matters very much. But let me say this. Vladimir Putin has not yet negotiated in good faith. Never once. Vladimir Putin started this war. He's a war criminal. And as you've pointed out, he started committing more war crimes this year by attacking civilians. He will begin to negotiate in good faith only when he is hurting enough. And that's what these oil sanctions may do. That's what more serious, more decisive and skillful weaponry may do. Okay. But he will not negotiate in good faith and has not yet said one word about actually ending this war in a meaneful way that will be lasting.
And we are just about to head to the 5th anniversary, so it's an important and serious situation. President Metsola, you heard Secretary General Rutte talk about, and we've read in the press, about certain American commands in NATO being transferred to Europeans. Is Europe ready for that? Does Europe welcome that? Is that the beginning of a, I don't know how to call it anymore, a decoupling, a de-risking, a going your own way? I know you're shaking your head, and we'll get to you.
I don't see it like that. I think we're living in a time of new geopolitics, and everything that we're used to is over in all respects. I was particularly struck by what President Zelenskyy said in his speech, where he said that the one aim of President Putin is to cause division. There is nothing that keeps him going before his people more than a rhetoric that the US and the Europeans are split, that the European countries between them are not aligned. I will not fall into that trap. What I will say is that the European Union has, perhaps better late than never, after years of perhaps doing less, stood up to say that we need to do more. We need to spend more. We need to create more. We need to help Ukraine develop more. And if we manage that, then how NATO is run, I'll leave that to your capable hands, Mark. But from a European perspective, we would also be able to be ready for anything. And readiness is in itself a deterrence. If we are going to be really, let's say, forward-looking and self-confident, I think we also lost that in the last few years, that we are able to have enough tools to stand up and be counted, then the US cannot go alone, just like we could not go alone. And this is something that we need to be able to say if we want to send a message for Russia and Putin's administration. And the cynicism with which we are discussing elections in Ukraine. When did we have fair elections in Russia? When are we going to be able to say that if there are bombs falling on cities, you cannot force those people without electricity to go to vote? And this is a cynical plot that we're falling into, and we absolutely should not allow it to. So it is this moment where we have to pick it up.
I've been told 3 more minutes. So I want to ask you a question.
So while the discussion continues with the panel, I also do have DW correspondent Terry Schultz, who is standing by for us at the conference in Munich. Terry, good to see you. Look, we've heard a lot. There's just a lot to break down. But I want to find out from you first, what really stood out for you so far?
So in the speech that we heard by President Zelenskyy, it was very clear that he did not want to again be criticized for failing to thank all the contributors to the defense of his country. And so he went through in sometimes very specific contributions of ammunition, of air defense, of generators, of, all the things that he wanted to make sure that he continues getting, of heavy weaponry. That's how he actually started his speech, by thanking Europeans for funding these packages of very high-end American weapons that come through this package called the Pearl, the Prioritized Ukraine Requirements List. And that is really how Ukraine is getting the bulk of its heavy weaponry at the moment. The Europeans pay, the Americans send it. That's been so important for Ukraine. It was a deal brokered by NATO chief Mark Rutte in the White House with President Trump. And everyone I speak to on and off the record say that's working very well for now, as long as the American supplies hold up. So Zelenskyy went through these things one by one, but in between he interspersed his messages that he very much needed this audience, which is made up of Europeans and Americans primarily, to hear, and that is that his people are suffering, and his people are suffering for Europe. They're holding the line, he reminds everyone, between Russia and them. So this is the way that he wants to remind Europeans to keep up and even strengthen their support of his country.
Right. I mean, highlighting what you just said, look, on the one hand, Zelenskyy is thanking his allies, for all the support so far. But he's also saying that much more is needed. He was asking for more missiles, for example, for the protection of Ukraine. I mean, what does it look like to you? Do you think he will get them?
Well, I mean, of course, he wants longer range missiles. This is something he's asking for constantly from the United States, because the Europeans don't have any to give at the moment. The UK has some and has already given some, but really the Americans need to unlock this potential, and so far that hasn't happened. So that is, of course, what he's asking for, but also air defense. I mean, not only does he need to be able to strike deep into Russia, he needs to be able to stop his populations, and that's what Russia truly is targeting, from being bombarded and killed. He noted that not one single power station in Ukraine has not been hit by Russian strikes. Now think about that every single day, every single night, you need to think about whether you're going to be able to charge your phone, to go about your business, to cook, to have warm water, and so many people don't. So, I mean, there's just, as you say, this huge range of things that Ukraine needs, and it's unclear what he'll get. You don't know what the Trump administration is going to do, and even Europe can be blamed, and is, for giving Ukraine enough to survive but not enough to win. It's not clear inside Europe or from the White House whether there is the will to help Ukraine win. I don't think we know the answer to that question.
Right, and that is exactly the biggest challenge now. Terry Schultz, thank you very much for that. And I'm sure we'll get back to you for more. But also with me in the studio is my colleague, DW correspondent Matthew Moore, who's going to give us more. No pun intended with that. I'm sure you hear that a lot, Matthew. But what we also heard a lot was the words from President Zelenskyy. I mean, there were so many things that he said that could easily make headlines around the world. One of it being, or calling Putin a slave to war, among other things. What is it for you that was the main highlight?
I thought it was interesting that Terry felt Zelenskyy was praising and being gracious for the help that the Europeans had given him. But I also detected a sense of frustration about the speed at which some of that help is arriving. He talked about, he gave huge praise to the emergency response workers in Ukraine dealing with the aftermath of attacks on his country, which he spelled out in detail, talking about 6,000 drone attacks in the past month. He said politicians could learn from the endurance, the indefatigability of some of these people and their sense of actionism, getting things done quickly. And so I thought that was interesting. And we heard as well, he wants a lot of the things that Terry talked about, weapons, air defences, but also cruise missiles that can target deep into Russia. But he also wants sanctions. He wants to see the Europeans crack down on the financial supply that is helping Putin fund this war. Things like the shadow fleet, something that's a big problem in the Baltic Sea, a few hundred kilometres north of where we are now. thought your comment there, rather Zelensky's comment, but you picked up on it, that Putin is a slave to war. That's probably going to be one of the things that is a headline. And his message there was, you may get a deal, but Putin will come back. If you don't get the right deal, Putin will come back, and you will end up having to fight a war of some description against Russian President Vladimir Putin. So the deal has to be right. And in that, he says, they're going to be having these trilateral talks in Geneva next week. He says he's serious, he's willing to make compromises. But he also said, it's for Putin has to come up and offer some compromises too. So the message really was here that we need strong security guarantees. You might ask what that is.
Exactly.
Huge Ukrainian army. Who's going to have to pay for that? That will be the Europeans. Last week, we signed off on a 90 billion euro loan, which will fund for 2 years the Ukrainian defence. And that would be things like funding that army, but you can't do that for 2 years. That needs to be a long-term funding. It's a lot of money. Is Europe willing to put its hands into its pockets over the next 10 to 20 years to help fund that?
That is the billion-dollar question. And adding to what you're saying, the security guarantee, as you say, what form will that be like? Because there seems to be a stalemate as to the agreement of European troops of any kind, at the border of Russia. Russia says no. So now what?
Yeah, well, the other part of the security guarantees, right? I mentioned the first one is having a very big standing army of 800,000 Ukrainian troops. That's the conventional deterrence. The other part is what guarantees would Ukraine's allies give? I think you're right. It's clear that Vladimir Putin is not going to allow for European soldiers to be stationed in Ukraine. And it's just not feasible. But one of the things that the Ukrainians and the Europeans can do is say, if you breach this deal to Russia, this is what will happen. And now you need a commitment of forces of some description, but everyone who's at Munich right now is aware and is fully aware that you need the Americans on side. We heard Mark Rutte there in the panel discussions saying that the Americans have given a pledge to be part of that deterrence, but he said something like 97% of these discussions have been locked down. Interestingly, Vladimir Zelenskyy there saying we need the security guarantees first, and then we can talk about the negotiations about territory.
Right.
I was also struck by something else he said.
Yeah.
This was the call for free elections in Ukraine. This has been something that has been a huge talking point of the Kremlin, that Volodymyr Zelenskyy is an illegitimate leader because Ukraine hasn't held elections. He has said, I will hold elections. I cannot do it in this current climate where we're defending nightly attacks from hundreds of drones. He said, if you can give me a ceasefire of 2 months, then we can talk about elections. And he said, I'd also like to see in that time maybe elections being held in Russia, which got a laugh in the room because obviously there are questions about the democratic legitimacy of Vladimir Putin.
Right, yeah. I also saw the bromance going on between Mark Rutte and Zelenskyy was kind of fun to see. But look, I wonder what your take is on this. We heard earlier from Rubio. Well, actually, I'm being told right now that we have a few seconds to wrap this up, so I'm sure we're going to pick it up at the next segment. So thank you very much, Matthew Moore, DW correspondent. That's all for now. Stay with us for more coverage of the Munich Security Conference throughout the day.
You know what no one ever taught us how to talk about?
Yes.
Love, sex, relationships.
People say it's an adjustment. It's not an adjustment. It's a new life.
This season, we're going deeper.
It doesn't happen to me.
With having that. If I feel like that on an occasion, I'll masturbate.
Exactly. No shame, no filters. Just honest conversations about what we really think but rarely get to say out loud. I'm Lisa Mangaldas, and I'm back with a brand new season of Love Matters.
No, you don't have to say shame. Shame, how do we even start?
This is your idea. Okay.
Tune in wherever you get your podcasts.
Is social media a threat to democracy? Online radicalization is dividing societies globally. Many people blame social media. We interact in echo chambers, and algorithms make sure we see opinions similar to our own. What's behind this? Let's take a closer look on Shift. Messaging friends, checking out new dances, and sneaking a peek at your crush's posts, all while catching up on the latest news. That's how a lot of people use TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. But that's just one side of social media, says Indian software developer Sairaj Balaji.
So people need to understand that social media now is not the same as it was 10 years ago. It is now a minefield, a battlefield for information warfare.
Information warfare using AI, but we'll get to that later. Everyone is fighting for your attention and time, because that means more advertising revenue. But to really reach people, you need content that grabs and entertains. That can take some getting used to. Politicians, for example, often struggle to communicate effectively on social media. That's why many of them turn to experts like Luna Möbius, a social media advisor for Germany's Green Party. She shows her colleagues what works and what doesn't.
This bland way of communicating, like I'm standing at my desk holding a speech, this matter-of-fact tone, it just doesn't work. Anger really works. Fear really works, but so does comedy. I think Democrats should use more populism in their content. I don't have an issue with populism as such, as long as it's based on actual facts.
Online, it's not the best arguments that win, but the strongest emotional reactions. Constantly being upset on social media keeps people glued to the platforms. Simple messages coupled with strong emotions are most successful. Algorithms then amplify these posts by targeting specific audiences, which generates more comments. Politicians try to make use of the digital outrage, and it has become part of media strategies and politics. In Luna Möbius' opinion, this is a huge mistake.
Apart from anger, fear, joy, or some sort of practical value like learning something new also work really well. What we're experiencing now is really divisive content purposely based on anger and fear and less on making people laugh or making them learn new things.
But the companies behind the large social media platforms are not interested in a change, and it's a profitable business for them. In 2025, digital advertising revenues are expected to reach over $1 trillion, and more than half goes to the big three: Alphabet, ByteDance, and Meta.
There are no strict regulations, but politicians have to come up with rules and consequences.
In order for there to be real consequences, laws would have to be standardized globally. And that doesn't seem realistic anytime soon. Instead of bringing people together, social media continues to divide, politically too. Entire platforms now have a political tint, like X, owned by Elon Musk, or TikTok, where the algorithm tends to amplify right-wing opinions. Conservative and extremist content also dominate Donald Trump's platform, Truth Social. To keep us scrolling, AI algorithms show us content that we've liked in the past, but that can reinforce stereotypes and narrow our view of the world. People with extreme or niche opinions also find each other more easily online. And as a group, they can seem louder than ever before. Then there are trolls and AI bots spreading political fake news and disinformation, for example about the war on Ukraine. They push conspiracy theories and hate speech. But where does free speech end and hate speech begin? The world is deeply divided over that question. Often what you see online is not neutral. It's filtered, polarizing, sometimes even manipulated. No wonder the tone used on social media has become harsher, and people are isolating themselves from opposing views. Even more alarming are some of the private chat groups on Telegram, Signal, or WhatsApp. Extremists have been known to approach children there, trying to politically radicalize them.
We're seeing more young men becoming radicalized online, not mainly by adults, but by slightly older kids. 13-year-olds are influencing 11-year-olds through social media content that's made to grab their attention and draw them in.
After the first contact on social media, recruiters tend to invite the children into private chat groups, like on WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal. That way, the conversation is hidden from view. Miro and his colleagues have shown us some screenshots from these groups, the names of which we are purposely not sharing. Some days, they would just discuss normal school topics. On other days, documents such as a kill guide or terror guide were shared. The group reportedly has members as young as 12. These groups are being detected around the world.
They form a community, and children are given a purpose, a conscience, a motivation to live, a purpose in life. And that's what makes these groups so dangerous.
These groups are linked to terror attacks and hate crimes against minorities. For example, Czech and Austrian police arrested 5 teenagers in June 2025. They had been radicalized online and tried to set fire to a synagogue. But social media is not the only place to recruit kids.
Most of it happens primarily in gaming worlds. The platform Roblox really stands out for us.
The popular kids game Roblox also has a shady side. While many of its virtual worlds are cute and innocent, some replicate terror attacks or mass shootings. Miro Dittrich says that the radicalization of young male teenagers is linked to other issues in society.
In a post-COVID world, there are many crises affecting the youth. Loneliness and masculinity are huge topics, and these issues, unfortunately, lead some people into right-wing extremist circles.
Miro says frustration about these crises makes young male teenagers susceptible to hypermasculine rhetoric, and that these groups know exactly how to exploit their insecurities. People are also being radicalized by classic fake news and propaganda. How can we stop it? An experimental AI tool developed by Sairaj Balaji could help. You might remember him from the beginning of the program.
So online radicalization is a problem because it is something that affects all spectrums of the political landscape. We don't want people who will kill other people.
20-year-old Sairaj Balaji, a college student from Chennai, India, has built a tool called Prism X. It can flag online radicalization and engage with the user through an AI bot in an attempt to de-radicalize them.
So this is the Prism X dashboard, and I'll just input a keyword here. The keyword now we'll use, this is FGC9. It is a keyword used to describe 3D printed guns. I'll click Run Scan.
Using large language models, Prism X scans entire social media networks for accounts, posts and comments featuring keywords in a radical context. It also provides a radicalism score and generates a detailed report. Currently, Prism X is running as a test version with dummy accounts.
So right now we have got around 12 flagged users. After that, the bot can converse with them. Right now we are conversing with a dummy account. Okay, there is no real person behind it.
The bot tries to gain the user's trust to persuade them to reject the radical views. In order to be more convincing, it never discloses that it's not actually a human. Today, sophisticated AI bots have become indistinguishable from actual people.
The tech has become very, very accessible. The thing I wanted to highlight with Prism X is that someone like me, someone with no training in radicalization or de-radicalization can do this. If I can do this, that means your governments can do this, the threat actors can do this. And they'll not tell you if they're doing it or not. You won't be able to distinguish if the account you're talking to is a bot or not.
Sairaj has been receiving negative comments, and he openly admits that a tool like Prism X can do a lot of harm. In the wrong hands, it could be used to radicalize, not de-radicalize.
Whatever you say, whatever you post can be picked up by any tool like this, can profile you, and can target you. A hypothetical advanced version of a tool like Prism X could create unrest, it could sow the seeds of dissension, it could change people's minds at scale about something. It can also be used to identify people who are vulnerable to radicalization and train them as insurgents in an automated fashion at scale. Imagine how scary that is.
It's a double-edged sword. Maybe the better approach is to show people how fake news, disinformation and deepfakes actually work and how to spot them. The Youth Media Democracy Days in Berlin are doing just that. From quizzes to virtual reality escape games to a deepfake photo challenge. The high school students at the Youth Media Democracy Days have a lot to do. At this station, students have 7 minutes to debunk fake news stories. Whoever needs help receives clues from Jörg Friedl.
Basically, we're on a mission to hunt down fake news. Visitors step into the role of fact-checkers in a fictional Ministry of News literacy.
To debunk fakes, the students check at least 2 reliable sources, report the same facts and thereby verify the story's origin.
You should pay attention to the data and the names, and if you're unsure, just check.
Some of these students spend 6 hours a day on social media, even though they know there's lots of fake news on platforms like Telegram, X or TikTok.
You see a lot of news like that on TikTok, for example, about Trump or war.
Many fake news stories include AI-generated images. Over at another station, the students have to try to generate deepfake images themselves using an AI tool.
It's important to create this so that you can see for yourself what these things look like and get to know the tools, just like the people who make them.
The trainers are from local NGOs. They are concerned about the impact of fake news and conspiracy theories on students. Some teachers are also worried.
I believe that it has the same effect on school children and young people as it does on adults. It divides society, leading to fights and the formation of cliques, which also erupts into hate both offline and online.
Hass offline und online entlädt.
Social media does perpetuate false information and has completely transformed political communication. Despite this, we are now able to share our own thoughts and discuss them with others in an instant, and maybe even go viral with them. What do you think about this freedom of speech on social media? Has it gone too far or not far enough? Let us know what you think, and bye for now.
The 12 Venetian maidens. Over 1,000 years ago, they were kidnapped and saved. This ancient legend is commemorated in the Festa delle Marie. It is the culminating event of the Venice carnival, and for 12 young Venetian women, a dream come true. Euromax. Next. Ukraine at the outbreak of war. Vulnerable people are guided towards safety. How life and hope endure in wartime. Dear beautiful beloved. In 45 minutes. Those who know, understand, can have a say, and make the right decisions. DW News on Instagram. For those in the know, follow us.
More than masks, we find out why the Festa della Maria is one of the highlights at Venice's carnival. Equal from day one, what makes childcare in Iceland different from the rest of the world? And simple yet authentic, a look at the role Tashkas play in Portugal's culinary culture. All this and more coming up on Euromax. The Festa della Maria is one of the oldest rituals of Venice's carnival. In the 10th century, 12 young Venetian women were allegedly abducted by pirates. Their dramatic rescue has been celebrated ever since.
Making a grand entrance on the Grand Canal at the Venice Carnival. Veronica Doria is one of this year's 12 Marias. Their parade through town in historic costumes is one of the annual festival's highlights.
I feel amazing in this dress. I never want to take it off.
But who are these Marias and what is their historical significance? We followed this young Italian woman through carnival celebrations to find out what it means to step into this role.
Hi, my name's Veronica Doria. I'm 26 years old, a nurse, and I was born in Venice. This is my city, and I've always wanted to be a Maria.
Veronica works at Venice's municipal hospital and lives in the very neighborhood where the story of the Marias was born.
I've always known the story of the Marias. It's very dear to my heart. Ever since I was a child, we've always watched the traditional parade. I wanted to be a Maria for years, but until last year I weighed about 100 kilos. I didn't think it was right for me to be among the best women representing Venice, at least not yet.
After losing some weight, Veronica decided to apply and got her spot. She was chosen from 50 applicants. Today, she's finally stepping into a 16th century style dress.
I was a bit concerned it wouldn't be a good fit, but it's actually very comfortable.
To be a Maria, you have to be between 18 and 28 years old, live in Venice or have been born here, and be selected by a jury of prominent members of Venetian public life.
I think the selection is about more than physical beauty. It's about personality, authenticity, empathy, and what connects us to the city.
The procession of the Marias commemorates a dramatic event from the Middle Ages. Over 1,000 years ago, pirates abducted 12 young women from this church during their wedding celebrations. The Doge, or the ruler of Venice, along with the city's residents, chased after them and managed to rescue the women.
It all happened during Carnival, so now people celebrate the rescue and the marriages of the 12 girls with the Feast of the Marias in Carnival season.
Back then, the Marias appeared before their weddings in a public procession. The Doge and wealthy Venetians gifted them dresses, jewelry, and dowries. Today, the Marias travel by gondola along the Grand Canal to St. Mark's Square and draw in many tourists. People had celebrated the Feast of the Marias up until the late Middle Ages, then dropped the tradition for centuries. Carnival organizers revived it in 1999. Spectators from around the world wait eagerly for the presentation of the 12 chosen Marias. For Veronica, a long-awaited moment has arrived. Veronica Doria, 26 years old, from Venice. Veronica's family have all come to see her big moment.
This is my mother. These are my grandmothers. We're very proud.
Elaborate costumes and masks are everywhere at the Venice Carnival. So why don't the Marias wear masks?
We don't need masks. The Marias are real. We don't have to pretend.
And they do more than just smile and wave. The Marias also support causes throughout Venice, cleaning historic monuments, for instance. But not in their exquisite costumes, of course. At the end of Carnival, organizers elect one of them as Maria of the Year. She then serves as an ambassador for Venice until the next Carnival.
Being able to represent my city would be a huge honor. Becoming Maria of the Year would be the perfect ending for me as one of the 12 Marias.
With or without a title, her greatest dream has already come true.
Iceland ranks high worldwide when it comes to gender equality. But what does that actually mean for parenting and for everyday life? We visited an Icelandic family to find out.
Sigrun Meta and Steinar are growing up with the idea that being a boy or a girl shouldn't define who they can be. In Iceland, equality starts at home. Mom and Dad both work full-time and both handle the kids, cooking, and chaos. Here, that's not a political statement. It's just Thursday.
We haven't talked about it. You do the laundry and you do the deep cleaning.
Hjalti does the tidying and the cooking. If he has free time to do something, he will do it. And if I have the time, then I will do it. We really don't talk that much about it. It just happens.
In case you didn't know, Iceland is like Taylor Swift when it comes to gender equality. 15 years straight at #1 in the Global Gender Gap Report. It ranks countries by how equally women and men share power, pay, education, and health. No other country closes the gap better. Let's zoom in on this typical Icelandic family. Margaret works in youth services. Heidi is a physiotherapist. Sigrun Meta is a first grader, and Steinar Mar, 3, is in preschool. Tiny humans, tight schedules. School starts at 8:30 a.m. sharp, and like most families, they hop in the car. Iceland is near the top when it comes to cars per capita. Steinar goes to preschool, like 86% of all kids under 5 in Iceland. From age 3, basically everyone is in early education.
In the mornings, getting them to school, it can be stressful, getting them on time and getting them used to kindergarten, getting them used to school. Yeah, that's probably been the most challenging for us.
Preschool is a big deal in Iceland. It's subsidized. Parents only pay a small monthly contribution. That's what makes full-time work for both parents possible. Families also get yearly child benefits, around 2,400 euros per child, plus around 900 euros more for kids under 7. If you earn a lot, you get a little less. Iceland was one of the first countries to introduce nearly equally paid parental leave in the year 2000, with parents still getting about 80% of their salary.
Both parents are entitled to 6 months, which is great. And then usually the one that gave birth takes the 6 weeks that you can't divide.
This afternoon, Heidi is taking the kids swimming. Very Icelandic. Geothermal pools are everywhere. They're naturally heated by volcanic energy and hot springs. Most babies start swimming classes at just 3 to 6 months. Sigrun Meta and Steinar did too.
They start swimming lessons every week, and they do it until they finish the 10th grade. So for 10 years we have swim lessons. So yeah, and that's in every weather. It has to be don't remember the temperature, it has to be -5 for it to be postponed. It has to be really cold. So it's, yeah.
Iceland's extreme seasons shape daily life. In summer, it hardly gets dark. In winter, hardly light. That makes routines even more important. At Margaret and Halti's home, dinner together is non-negotiable, even if the kids don't want to eat their vegetables.
Sometimes they eat it, sometimes they don't. And if they would choose, it would be hamburgers, hot dogs, and pizza every day. But yeah.
When it comes to parenting, their priority is clear: raising happy kids and making sure the family gets real quality time together.
In general, we try to be not really strict. I think we have our approach is more calm and try to discuss things. I think it's just to be a nice person, not to be a well-behaved person or disciplined.
Gender equality is not something we think about every day, but of course, living in Iceland, it affects us. We have the same expectations to them both, and we want the same for them.
So what do Icelandic parents do differently? Maybe it's the natural way. They simply treat their kids as equals.
Have you ever heard of a Tashkas? These are simple eateries in Portugal, the kind of neighborhood spot where the food is hearty and affordable, and a hot tip for anyone traveling to Portugal.
Hungry? Craving generous portions of hearty soul food, and all for a few euros? Then a Portuguese Tashka is the place for you. A little best of from the menu.
Bacalhau à minhota, codfish, fried onions, and chips.
Beans. Wonderful.
Tashkas, it's one of my favorites.
Grilled sea bream, it's really good.
Portuguese sardines. At first glance, it's an unassuming place. So what makes it so popular?
It's not pretentious. It's what it is, and the food is great. It's more about the food than it is about the rest.
It's mostly a place where you come typically with your friends or with your family, mostly on the lunch, not so much dinner.
If you know Sr. João, you will see that everyone likes him and likes to come here.
Welcome to Imperial de Campo de Ourique, João's Tashka.
Tashka de João.
João has been running the Tashka for 40 years. It's filled with memories of home in northern Portugal. But if it weren't for the Tashka's undercover boss, João's wife Adelaida, their daughter-in-law Mila, and son Nuno, the operation would grind to a halt. Tashkas are usually a family affair, but for Nuno, the family extends beyond the counter. It's a family relationship. We see the customer as part of our family. They're the whole reason why we're here. Regulars who arrive early are often served by the entire family. João is more than just an owner. He's the head host. He knows most of his guests by name and makes sure they feel right at home.
You can find pretty much anybody. You can find young people, working class people. You can find older people that meet their friends here, and this also serves as like a social point of gathering where people, because in Tashkas they know everything about the neighborhood, so when you want to know something, you always ask the people from the Tashka because they know.
Thiago Paes has eaten his way through countless Tashkas in Lisbon and written a book about the best ones. Tashkas have existed throughout the country since the 20th century, but most are here in the capital. Bizarrely, Tashkas used to be places that sold coal. Owners would earn some money on the side by selling wine and snacks.
People would go there to buy coal or some other stuff for the house, and they would stop to drink a little bit of wine. And then they evolved, like coal shops. When electricity came, coal shops were not needed anymore. So there were the taverns, and then the taverns transformed into little restaurants.
In 2010, there were some 3,000 Tashkas in Lisbon, but many have since closed down. The pandemic hit them hard, and rising rents threaten many more.
Value these kind of places because there are not many of them, and we don't know for how long they will survive. So it's important to look at this kind of places.
So here's how it works. Olives, bread, and cheese are brought to the table unprompted unless you decline. Then, a main course easily big enough for two. And leave room for dessert. They're great too. But how can you tell if a Tashka is a tourist trap?
If they have like tapas on the menu, avoid that. Or if they have paella as the main dish, it's not a Tashka for sure.
Checking the menu online beforehand? Forget it. At João's Tashka, there's only one, handwritten in chalk every morning by Adelaida.
Todos os dias é diferente.
Every day is different.
De verão,
in summer, there are more grilled dishes. In winter, we have more dishes cooked in pots, like stews that are served more in winter. For example, feijoada or dobrada.
Agora temos bacalhau.
Fried cod, sardines, fava bean stew. You'll find dishes here truly unique to Portugal. Just give them a try. If you want some pointers, ask your waiter.
Here we have an expression, o que é que está a sair rápido? So, what's going out quickly? You know, what's quickly to serve? What's quick to serve? Because that's usually the dish of the day that they have. They have been doing it from the first hours in the morning, so it's always ready to go.
Tashkas are also good value for money. A full meal, including drinks, will set you back less than 30 euros. But many, including Joao's, close up shop after midday.
For
me, it's about Portuguese tradition, our roots. A tashka is something that must be preserved at all costs. It's a part of our culture. A tashka isn't just about the food. It's a place of belonging. What about where you live? Do you have your own kind of tashka?
We're staying with Europe's culinary treasures. Have you ever wondered what makes Greek yogurt so unmistakable? In Athens, we found some answers.
Is this the world's best yogurt? Real Greek yogurt owes its popularity to its thick, creamy consistency. We'll show you how it's made and how versatile it can be. But what makes it so special?
It's very thick. Yeah, it's not like the regular yogurt you buy in a supermarket.
It's a superfood. It's full of probiotics.
Above all, it's healthy.
We're visiting one of Athens' oldest yogurt producers. The Stani dairy in the center of the Greek capital has been making yogurt for almost 100 years. It's served fresh in the in-house cafe. In Greece, yogurt is traditionally made from sheep's milk, with cow's or goat's milk being more recent variants. Owner Thanasis Karagiorgos learned the secrets of yogurt production from his parents and grandparents. The recipe has remained unchanged to this day.
Our business is an archive of tastes and smells, a time capsule. The last batch of yogurt contains the cultures for the next batch. And it goes on, one after the other, going back almost 100 years.
In the basement dairy, the process is always the same.
We heat the milk slightly to 40 degrees Celsius to make it a little thinner. Then we run it through a filter. Finally, we heat the milk to 90 degrees. Some of the water evaporates as we stir. This gives us thicker milk and, as a result, a firmer yogurt. We pour the milk into pots and let it cool down to 45 degrees. Then we add the lactic acid bacteria from the last yogurt culture and let it sit at 42 degrees for 3 hours. That lets the mixture thicken.
After 12 hours of cooling, the yogurt is ready. It is thickened further by draining it through a cloth. Larger manufacturers use huge sieves or a centrifuge. Thanasis still does this by hand. Abroad, strained yogurt is known as Greek yogurt. It mostly uses cow's milk, which produces thin yogurt.
Traditional Greek yogurt has been made from sheep's milk since antiquity. What they call Greek yogurt abroad has to be strained. Because the yogurt produced there is not thick enough to stand on its own. It has to be strained so that it's more like Greek yogurt.
Real Greek yogurt must be produced in Greece. If it isn't, it may only be marketed as Greek-style yogurt. What for Greeks is a part of everyday life is for tourists a taste experience.
This is a product we've grown up with.
It's the best yogurt I ever eat.
What do you think? Is Greek yogurt the best in the world?
Anyone visiting Germany's capital inevitably comes face to face with its past. From Cold War relics like Checkpoint Charlie to lesser-known places that tell powerful stories of life under the former East German dictatorship. This complex of buildings located in Berlin used to house the former East German secret police. Which methods did the East German spy service, the Stasi, use to observe and control the citizens of the GDR? I'm at the former Stasi headquarters here in Berlin to find out. The Stasi maintained control through a vast network of informants and intimidation. The former dictatorship effectively suppressed dissent. My guide today is Sven Berendt, the managing director of the museum. He works to preserve the history of this building. What was the primary function of the Stasi?
In the GDR, one party was in power, the Communist Party. This party wanted to decide everything. It was against discussing its decisions, so the state security ensured there were no surprises and that the party could enforce its decisions.
One of the things used to hinder dissent was this unspectacular-looking truck. Sven, this looks like an ordinary vehicle to me, like an old truck or a delivery truck, but this van has quite a bit of significance, doesn't it?
Of course, it's just a truck, but it's also a symbol. The state security used such trucks to transport several thousand political prisoners every year.
This truck might look nondescript, but the feeling inside this vehicle was claustrophobic and anything but comfortable. Very interesting. By the time the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, the Stasi had around 91,000 full-time employees and approximately 189,000 unofficial collaborators, perhaps even more. They spied on their colleagues, friends, and sometimes even their spouses. So, Sven, you were just telling me there were actually secrets within secrets in this building.
That's absolutely correct. It was only recently discovered that a camera was hidden in the wall many decades ago, in 1966. From this hole, employees of the state security were photographed while washing their hands. We still don't know why, but here you can see a very typical method for the Stasi for gathering information, namely hiding video cameras or photo cameras to obtain information.
The man largely responsible for this massive state-sponsored spy operation in East Germany was Erich Mielke.
This is where the Minister for State Security worked, Army General Erich Mielke. He was also a member of the party leadership. State security was strongly based on Mielke's concept of total control.
What happened to him when the wall fell?
He was arrested and charged with a murder he had committed 60 years earlier. He was investigated for 30 crimes, including corruption and other such offenses. He was then sentenced to 6 years in prison, but was released after a few years and died in a nursing home as a free man.
On January 15, 1990, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, demonstrators took over the former headquarters to end its operations and save files from being destroyed. Today, the site serves as an educational center. Wow, what a day. I can honestly say that I am astounded by how extensive the spying network was. It leaves you feeling a little bit paranoid, to say the least. Now, I also can honestly say I really don't know what I would have done if I had lived under such a system. And on that note, it's time to say goodbye. You can find more exciting stories from across Europe on our social media channels, so be sure to click and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Until next week, it's goodbye and auf Wiedersehen.
Ukraine at the outbreak of war. Vulnerable people are guided towards safety. How life and hope endure in wartime. Dear beautiful beloved. In 15 minutes.
Traveling intra-Africa is really cumbersome, not to mention expensive.
It's insane. I've had Seychelles in my bucket list for a very long time. We could surf in Liberia.
Every single country comes up with its own terms, its own taxes.
I've been doing outside, going to Asia, going to Europe.
How about we see ourselves as a collective Africa?
Why is this process lagging?
The 77% in 90 minutes.
I won't cut my hair until everything is over and justice has been done for my daughter.
Kinjal was raped at age 14.
What happened to me should never happen to any other girl.
But it happens to countless Indian women. Kinjal does what many women are too afraid to do. She is pursuing justice in court, along with her father.
In 3 months, it will have been 3 years since the rape trial began.
My Father's Hair starts February 27th on DW.
Whispers of the Earth.
We have to listen carefully. Listen to the stories the rocks are desperately trying to tell us.
Their calm is deceptive. Their fury shapes entire continents. They witnessed the birth of life and form the bedrock of our existence. They bear our burden and the weight of our greed. It's time to hear the stories of the stones. How our planet came to be. Whispers of the Earth starts March 13th on DW.
This is DW News live from Berlin. At the Munich Security Conference, America's top diplomat says the US and Europe must revitalize their alliance, but that Europe must be stronger.
We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength.
Marco Rubio delivers a welcome message of transatlantic unity to Munich, welcomed a year after Vice President J.D. Vance attacked European leaders from the same podium. Vladimir Zelenskyy tells the Munich audience Vladimir Putin is a slave to war. He appeals for more help with Ukraine's air defenses and says European and transatlantic unity is the best interceptor of Russian missiles and drones. Hello there, I am Eddie Micah Jr., and you are welcome to the program. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has told leaders at the Munich Security Conference that Europe and the U.S., quote, belong together. Rubio spoke of a shared future for the transatlantic alliance, saying that the U.S. doesn't want to separate from Europe, but it wants to revitalize the relationship. Rubio's speech came a year after Vice President J.D. Vance used the same stage to attack European policies on immigration and free speech. Now, with a decidedly different tone, Rubio still emphasized what he said was the need for changes in the relationship.
The alliance that we want is one that is not paralyzed into inaction by fear. Fear of climate change, fear of war, fear of technology. Instead, we want an alliance that boldly races into the future. And the only fear we have is the fear of the shame of not leaving our nations prouder, stronger, and wealthier for our children. An alliance ready to defend our people, to safeguard our interests, and to preserve the freedom of action that allows us to shape our own destiny. Not one that exists to operate a global welfare state and atone for the purported sins of past generations. An alliance that does not allow its power to be outsourced, constrained, or subordinated to systems beyond its control. One that does not depend on others for the critical necessities of its national life. And one that does not maintain the polite pretense that our way of life is just one among many, and that asks for permission before it acts. And above all, an alliance based on the recognition that we, the West, have inherited together. What we have inherited together is something that is unique and distinctive and irreplaceable, because this, after all, is the very foundation of the transatlantic bond.
Right. DW correspondent Matthew Moore is with me in the studio. Hello, Matthew. Good to see you again. So we just heard Marco Rubio basically outlining what he saw as the transatlantic alliance. How much of what he said with respect to the alliance, does it really align with Europe's interest?
I think there was a lot that Marco Rubio said today that will go down well among the people in the room in Munich. That is this idea of Europe being more assertive, Europe doing more on its own, doing more on defence. I think that there was a palpable sense of relief because it wasn't as confrontational as the speech that J.D. Vance gave a year ago.
Right.
It was polite. He talked about cherished allies, old friends. He really emphasised the bonds between Europe and the US. At the same time, there were key themes that emerged in this speech today that were very similar to the themes that we heard from J.D. Vance a year ago. Some of those themes are about mass migration being a civilizational threat to Europe. That is something that comes right out of the right-wing playbook and is not something that everyone in the room will have been pleased to hear. And there were criticisms. We heard him talk about that Europe shouldn't be apologetic for its past. He really emphasised Christian roots. So there are things there which, on the face of it, it seemed like a speech that many people will have been glad and relieved that it wasn't, as I say, as confrontational as the previous speech given last year. But it's very much criticism there throughout.
Right. I mean, it's as you say, it's more like a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, a bit of relief compared to J.D. Vance's last year's speech, but on the other hand, still criticizing. So what does Europe take from this, really?
I think they'll be glad that this was not a speech that came out in attack mode. Yeah. Yesterday, we heard the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, give a speech which was very blunt. This was a speech which criticised, in many respects, some of the policies that the Trump administration is pursuing, things like tariffs, protectionism. He criticised culture wars, said that these culture wars in the United States are not ours. So very direct criticism. And I think there was some concern that we may get a reaction today from Marco Rubio. And I have to say, I don't think we did get a direct reaction to that. But of course, there were those key Trump talking points in the speech given today by Marco Rubio.